everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well. Today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which sees the brand new releases of Kung Fu Panda 4, the horror film Imaginary, and the new film from Angel Studios, same director as Sound of Freedom, Cabrini, which I was actually able to see a early access cut of, and I had my review up over on Critic List yesterday, and I guess I talk a little bit about that towards the end of the video as well. But a lot of things going on in addition to, of course, the second weekend for Dune Part 2, right now projected to only drop 47% domestically, so a lot of high hopes for Dune Part 2. Is it going to be able to hold? What are we seeing in the comparison between it and films like Oppenheimer, for instance, of which it had a very similar opening weekend? Let's just say right now, what has been predicted, what I predicted last weekend was going to happen, sure enough, has continued to happen up to this point, but we are going into a weekend, and sometimes the weekends don't necessarily match up with the daily performances, so I'll give my analysis on that in just a second. Before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button over on Odyssey, and smash the rumble button as well, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification on. That way you know every time the video or live stream goes live on the channel. So according to Box Office Pro, as you can see, Kung Fu Panda 4 is right now projected to take the #1 spot, but everyone in the industry is saying that it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle between Kung Fu Panda 4 and Dune Part 2 for that top spot, and really it's going to be determining on, or it's going to be dependent upon, just how strongly does Dune Part 2 actually hold. If we go by what we've been seeing in the daily performance of Dune Part 2, to me, it just seems like Dune Part 2 is probably going to have a decent-sized drop-off. Yes, it's gotten a lot of positive reviews from people who have gone to see it. Yes, it's gotten a lot of praise. It is getting universal acclaim. The overall critic list score right now is most excellent. And so you're getting a lot of that positive word of mouth that a lot of these films need to be able to have the type of strongholds that we can, that we've been seeing more recently with those films that have been able to kind of just to grasp the culture, have been able to grasp the audiences with great filmmaking. But at the same time, we also have a lot of new releases, and these new releases are covering many different genres. So Kung Fu Panda 4 from Universal, from Illumination, this is going to be covering the family demographic. It's going to be bringing in some of the kids, some of the families. So $48.3 million is what right now that film is projected to make in its opening weekend, and this is based off of a budget of around $85 million, and so that's not a terrible start. We'll of course have to wait and see what those international numbers are looking like too, but Kung Fu Panda 4, to me, I don't quite understand why we're now on the fourth Kung Fu Panda movie. The first one was fine, but I didn't really feel like there was a need to have any other films after that point. So I always look at those movies, and anytime you have like the fourth, the fifth, or whatever it might be, it just really seems like an ultimate cash grab opportunity rather than actually trying to make good films and good stories and things like that. That being said, I have not seen Kung Fu Panda 4, so I don't know whether it's good or not. Obviously, there are many occasions where you do have those later films in a franchise that actually end up being a lot better than even some of the previous films. I think of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, right? Got a lot of acclaim because everyone thought that it was pretty good, and everyone thought that it was pretty entertaining, not just for the kids, but also even for parents as well. And so maybe we see that for Kung Fu Panda 4. Too early to tell whether this film will be able to take that #1 spot, or will be able to, kind of stand the test of time, hold its own, and have a strong box office performance. Dune Part 2 right now is only being projected to get the second place spot, $43.8 million. But notice how much higher Kung Fu Panda 4 and Dune Part 2 are over anything else, right? The new horror film Imaginary is right now expected to make around $10.6 million. We have seen pretty consistently a lot of these horror films, they make a decent amount of money compared to their budgets up front, and then they have a massive drop off by week 2, but they're usually able to make about what they need to break even by about that second or third week, because you usually have just a heavily front-ended movie. And so I think Imaginary will probably be seeing something very similar. I don't have the actual budget in front of me right now, but I imagine it's probably still pretty low. Bob Marley is also still hanging around. 22% hold is what's being projected for this movie, so that's actually a lot stronger than I would have thought, especially with a bunch of new films across different genres. Cabrini expected to then take the next spot. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Cabrini right now is projected to get the #5 spot. Now, Cabrini is an interesting film because it is, of course, from Angel Studios. It, of course, is also from the director of Sound of Freedom. We all know how Sound of Freedom did. The difference, I think, is that Sound of Freedom was telling a very important story that does not get nearly as much attention. There's let's just say that there is the ability to take action after the film is done. You're able to, to be like, okay, there's a problem in the world and I need to fix it. And I think that is something that, that Sound of Freedom has, and that's why I think it was able to help so many people spread the word saying you have to go see this movie. It's so important. just to find out these actual things that are going on. Cabrini, I do think, has that element of message towards the end, meaning that message of action towards the end about, hey, we're called to be Christ's mission in the world, right? We are called to look at others and see the dignity of the human person. And that's what this film ultimately deals with. It deals with Catholic social teaching, right? It deals with what does the values of Christ look like when we apply them to the actual world around us, when we try to look at all persons, whether they be poor, whatever they might be, as human persons. And I think that that's going to be a very important message that I think is going to resound with a lot of people. I know that in their marketing, they unfortunately are, I think they're spending a little bit too much time focusing on it's coming out on International Women's Day and focusing on that aspect. And they do, of course, talk about that. But I think the big difference and the reason why it doesn't bother me all that much is because this movie is set at a time when there actually was discrimination, right? When there actually was this mindset of women can't do these things and shouldn't be in these specific places and things like that. And so it's completely relevant for that stuff to be in there, and it's barely in there. It's just, again, various moments where it makes sense, right? She goes in to talk to the Senate in Italy, for instance. She goes to talk to the mayor of New York. These are things where you're like, okay, yeah, that would make sense for that stuff to happen at that particular time. And really, again, it's not even the main focus, because her main focus is always set on Christ. Her main message is always set on the people that she's helping. And so I think that message will probably resound with a lot of people. And I think that this film will probably have a pretty strong domestic run. I think it'll also have an international run. The one thing that will hold this film back, though, right, because I think the message is universal, it's going to, I think, suffer from some things that we've seen from other movies more recently, right, which is that you have a film like Godzilla Minus One, which can do very well, but got held back because it was in Japanese, because again, a lot of audiences, and especially in America, don't necessarily want to go see a film where they have to read off the screen. This is not universal, right? Especially when it comes to faith-based movies. You think about The Passion of the Christ, that entire film is subtitled, and yet you had a lot of people going to see that. The difference there is that that's actually the story of Christ. That's actually going to be something that's going to be a lot more compelling for all Christians, whereas this one is going to be more compelling for Catholics, but also I think other Christians too will be able to still find a lot of value in this. I think that it was the Force of Light Entertainment Channel. Shout out to them. I think that they were able to see this movie early as well, and I think that they had some positive things to say. Now, I will say I have not watched their review. Shout out to them, though. Make sure to watch that. I will be watching that later. But still, I think that this is going to have universal appeal. I think this is going to be able to bring a lot of people in as far as that is concerned. So, yeah, $5.2 million makes sense to me, but it is also Angel Studios. They are able to typically perform better than what studio projections ultimately have. So I think Cabrini will probably end up doing pretty well. Ordinary Angels, 46% drop. 46% drop. Madam Web, 43% drop, and then a 50% drop for the next episodes of The Chosen. So as you can see, we can have kind of the usual suspects in here, but with new releases, it's the most new wide releases that are doing well or projected to do well that we've had in quite a long time. Going over to Tony over at Deadline, Kung Fu Panda 4 is to soar to around $50+ million. And so this is where you can see, again, the difference in speculation there. So right now, Box Office Pro is saying the average being around 48.3. So right now, if you look to the overall numbers, they think $44 to $54 million is the range there. For Dune Part 2, $40 to $47 million. And so there is definitely some crossover. So if, Dune Part 2 holds a lot better than expected, then it could beat the low end of Kung Fu Panda 4. That's the reason why it's kind of a toss-up about what film is going to take first place. Cabrini, their range is around $3 to $6 million. And so we absolutely could see this film end up doing better as well. But anyway, let's see what Tony has to say in the very beginning here. It says, the thawing of the winter box office continues this weekend with Universal, which is bound to see franchise's second highest domestic opening of $50 million at 3,900 screens after the original 2008 film. Yes, unadjusted for inflation. And if you take into account ticket prices, it's not anywhere close. But again, I see your point. It is still performing well for this box office, but will it be able to make its budget back? $85 million, not that high. I think that because especially it's making $50 million domestically, it's off to a good start. But that's not all. It's also the second biggest start for a DWA title after Universal acquired the label from its 20th Century Fox distribution deal. The biggest during Universal's 2.0 with DWA being How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, which debuted to $55 million back in March of 2019. And again, ticket prices were very different back then too. It goes on to say Legendary's Dune Part 2 keeps humming with $8.1 million yesterday off Bargain Tuesdays, 12% over Monday, for a running total through 5 days of $98 million, crossing $100 million. It's actually crossed $200 million as of the recording of this stream. And so I do think that it is important for us to keep these different things in mind. Now, going to the charts, we love doing charts here over at OMB Reviews. Some of these numbers have not updated yet because of the time in which this is being recorded. But as you can see, $85 million means the break even is going to be roughly around $212, maybe up to $300 million that Kung Fu Panda needs to make worldwide. It's looking like that's probably going to happen for this movie, if I had to guess, based off of just that initial opening. But of course, we do have a very crowded month of March, and so will it have an impact or not? We'll have to wait and see. Dune Part 2, though, if the fact that it is right now at $200 million, I think that is a great indication about why I think this movie is not going to be able to reach the same heights as a film like Oppenheimer. Right now, it's at $204 million. At the end of its second weekend, Oppenheimer was at $400 million worldwide. And I've mentioned this before, that you have very different types of movies in between Dune and Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer had the Barbenheimer effect. I think some people downplayed just how important that was. Also, release schedule too, right? That film, Oppenheimer, coming out in July over the summer. That's why you do see between the two movies, there's a much stronger, daily number in Oppenheimer versus that of Dune Part 2. I've been tracking this most of the week, as you can see. Right, the weekend was won by Dune Part 2, $82.5 million opening weekend versus the $82.4 million of Oppenheimer. But Oppenheimer has had a run at the daily numbers, 12-7, 12-8, 10-6. So at the same point of release, $117 million for Oppenheimer, $104 million for Dune Part 2. And I think that what we're going to see this weekend is we're going to see, I think, so let's see, the second weekend of Oppenheimer was able to get, 10, 13, and oh my goodness, wait a minute, hold on. Sorry, 13, 18, and 15. All right, so you got 30, 38, 42, and then going all the way up to about 47. So a $47 million roughly domestic second weekend. So we're looking at basically the overall weekends being somewhat similar between Oppenheimer and Dune Part 2, at least the projected numbers for Dune Part 2. But as you can see, right, those daily numbers, I think, are going to make that ultimate difference. And so I think Dune Part 2 will probably end up being pretty close to $300 million worldwide by the end of this weekend, maybe somewhere between $250 and $300 million by the end of the weekend. And so it will not be too far off, right, $300 million by the end of the second weekend versus $400 million that was for Oppenheimer. But I think that $100 million difference is the reason why I still have my projections as being this film ending, Dune Part 2, ending somewhere between $600 and $800 million, which is, again, very, very good. But remember, their break-even point is that around $600 million. So this film then is going to, at worst case scenario, be able to break even, and in a best case scenario, be able to make a little bit of profit. So again, based on the numbers that we have right now, that is kind of where we're looking at it. And so again, much better situation than what Dune Part 1 was looking at, but still, I think people would be expecting a little bit more because of just how much hype there is around this movie. So those are the numbers for the box office. What do you think is going to happen? Before ending the video, though, I did want to give a final shout out to the Raven Awards. And so this Sunday is the sixth annual Raven Awards. We do an Oscars boycott show here on the channel, and we have a lot of fun categories, not only best movie of the year, but we also talk about the worst movie of the year. We talk about the shill of the year, right? We talk about the NPC in media of the year, and tons of other fun things, one-liners, best stunt team, best stunt scene, and just a lot of really great categories. And so if you've not voted yet, tonight is the last chance that you have, right? So you have until this evening. Sometime this evening, I will be cutting off the voting, and so please make sure that you do so. That'll be Eastern time in the United States, and so if you are overseas, make sure you get those votes in. It is a Google form, but you do not have to have a Google email address, and so please make sure to actually take advantage of that. And also, if you've not joined the Discord server, I am hosting watch parties. I hosted a watch party last couple days, and I'll be hosting another watch party today, trying to show as many of the films that I think haven't been seen by as many people in my Discord server. So I'll be setting that up actually right after I finish this video. But anyway, if you want to be a part of that, join the Discord channel. See the top link in the video description below, and the link tree to be able to get access to that channel. And also, of course, you can see a link posted to it as well on the YouTube community page and other places. But anyway, what do you think? Kung Fu Panda 4, is it going to make money? Is it going to be able to beat out the second weekend of Dune Part 2? Dune Part 2, what do you think its final number is? I think still $600 to $800 million right now is the most likely scenario. And again, we know the numbers because of just its budget size, how much it really needs to break even, especially with so much of it still coming from those international numbers. Anyway, what are y'all's thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, line up that fire button over on Odyssey, and smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Share out that ballot link for the Raven Awards. I want to get as many people voting as possible. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members for the month of March, starting off with Father Luca Illich, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel being Eagle Rider. Miss Mon Muses, check out her YouTube channel as well by the same name. Matt317, check out his Twitch channel by the same name. Mr. Roy and the K-Man, check out the K-Man's website at xtheboundaries.co. If you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, or if you want your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, make sure to check out the top link in the video description on how you can find out where to join on Patreon, Subscribestar, YouTube channel memberships, pretty much anywhere that you can think of that you would have as a mainstream source to be able to support the channel. You have the means to do so, and you get also special perks like having access to an exclusive podcast that I do every single month, access to a giveaways channel that I host on my Discord channel, and also, of course, the ability to have your channel shouted out at the end of every single live stream. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.